Welcome all you lovely people to another r/I don't work here lady video. Our first story of the day is by Miss Molly Magpie, Angry Customer with Plot Twist. I have worked in customer service for years and, as you can imagine, have suffered much abuse. I was in a gas station I did not work at and grabbed something I needed off the bottom shelf. I habitually pulled the next couple of items forward to make it easier for the next person to get to. Seeing this, a man assumed I worked there. He proceeds to start yelling, yes, actually yelling, at me about the price of the quarts of oil. Sarcasm is my second language, so I brightly say to him, "I'm sorry, sir. When I'm in charge of the prices, I'll be sure to get that changed for you." And prepare for the backlash. To his credit and my utter amazement, he stops himself and says, "You're right, you have nothing to do with the prices, and I apologize." I tell him no worries and let him know there's a box store down the street that would have lower prices. He said that's okay, he was in a hurry, went to the cashier, made his purchase and thanked them, and then went on his way. I stood in shock for a moment, my faith in humanity temporarily restored. Still makes me smile when I think of him. If you were in a store like this and you saw somebody kind of badmouth an employee unreasonably like this, are you the kind of person that after the fact would say some kind words to the employee considering they didn't deserve that? Or are you the kind of person that would keep your head down and keep on moving? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by DillXOXOXLib, Weird Confrontation with Karen. So this happened last Saturday. I work at a mobile COVID testing site for the county. Usually we set up in a church parking lot or something, and customers pull up in their cars, and we talk to them through their closed window. But it's not unusual to get members of the public who are just curious what we're doing, or that think we're just giving out vaccines or we're a food bank. Which, by the way, if you're lucky enough to not need a food bank at the moment, then you should donate. We see a lot of them and they're always packed. So we have cones set up between our trucks to create a lane. And if you work registration, you usually do an hour shift at a time. We weren't very busy, no cars in line. It was my last shift before we had to pack up, and I was sitting at the registration, Reggie, shack. I go to toss something in the trash, and I see this green car pull up perpendicular to the lane of cones. I start pointing to the lane, trying to let this old Karen know where to go. She pulls up right near me, maybe 20 feet away, and rolls down her window, which is kinda annoying since we have to tell half our patients not to do that. But I'm like, whatever, let's just get her in line and then I'll tell her to keep her windows up. So I say to her, "The line is right here, pull into it and come up to this cone." The Karen says, "What?" I say, "The line. Are you not here to get tested?" She says, "No, I'm looking for information on the church services." I say, "Oh, well, we're with County Name Public Health. This is a COVID testing site." "A what?" "A COVID testing site. We aren't with the church." She furrows her eyebrows and says the word like she hadn't heard it before. "COVID? Oh, you know, I would never catch anything like that. You see, I am immune because I have good chemistry in my blood. My ancestors were exposed to the bubonic plague, and we are protected against it and couldn't get sick. And my great-grandfather was exposed to the bubonic plague in 18-something date, and he had 2 kids born in 19-something and 1922. Basically, she goes on and on about her family lineage for longer than my patients would allow me to follow. But I stood silently and waited for her to stop talking. After maybe 2 minutes, she does, and I'm like, "That's nice, ma'am, but as I said, we aren't with the church. If you're here to ask about them, they should be in that building over there." At this point, she gets out of her car, which is a big no-no. I got the first dose of my vaccine around Christmas, so I wasn't afraid of catching it, but she wasn't wearing a mask, and we can't have randos out and about the site, especially without one, because some of our newer staff haven't been vaccinated. If we become spreaders, it subverts what we are doing, and also because it looks bad to the public when they see people without masks hanging out. I say, "Ma'am, this is a testing site. You have to stay in your car." She says, "I would never catch any of this stuff, and..." I'm just gonna summarize her major points. but she ranted about how she had survived to be such and such old and all sorts of things, including being beaten by police. This lady was white, by the way. At this point, it was nearly the end of my shift, and she wasn't listening, so I grabbed my radio and said, "Hey, sheriff deputy's name, can you come over here?" She went on and on about how the police cracked her head open, and they had her handcuffed and she was bleeding a lot. One of my coworkers, G, who was on the next shift, saw her because she had parked next to his car, and was like, "Ma'am, what is the actual problem?" And I guess I hadn't noticed that she was yelling and gesticulating. The two sheriff's deputies have pulled up, and she's still going on about how her German grandpa had worked on the atomic bombs for the Americans after the war, and even invented a cure for cancer before being invited by the King of Hungary himself to come to his country and blah blah blah. But I'm not racist because I'm half Jewish. At this point, the charge nurse comes up with a yellow mask for her and tells me to give it to her. And the three people from the next shift are standing nearby wondering what's going on. G is still trying to figure out what the issue is, and the sheriff's deputies are all trying to be polite, but also trying to interrupt her. And she goes on like this for seriously 10 minutes before finally the deputies start ordering her back in her car. Meanwhile, I'm just kind of laughing and everyone's exasperated, and I'm trying to explain to the nurse what is happening. Finally, I think one of the deputies told her to get the freak out or get arrested, and she gets back in her car. She drives off around the truck I drive for the unit, where there is no exit, and the cops are trying to ask me what exactly happened, but she stops at a part near where the lanes end and the hot zone is, and so they move to shoo her off again. But she finally just drives over a cone and goes on her way. The site manager, who had been in the bathroom, finally comes out, and I have to tell him, "Man, you totally missed it." I'm kinda getting the vibe that she was either really clueless, or she was kind of hopped up on something. And I'm kinda leaning towards the second part. This next story is by Mikabra. My new number used to belong to on-call nurse. When switching jobs, I received a new phone and number. Immediately, I started getting phone calls where people started talking medical problems. Not too frequently, but on average, a call a week. First, I thought it was the wrong number, but then I asked what number they called, and it was indeed my number. It seems this number was for an on-call nurse, written down in many places. Everything from patients to healthcare institutions. When I understand the situation, I try to explain to people calling that this number is no longer for an on-call nurse, and please erase it from where they found it. After getting a call from a confused older man with hard of hearing, I figure out I need to try to get to the source of this. I contact the main branch of the regional healthcare in that region, we have public healthcare, and ask them to do something about this. Perhaps send out a bulletin to get everybody to remove this number. I get a response from the person responsible for telephony that, "Oh, we have followed our guidelines and this number has been in quarantine for 6 months and that's that." I then respond that I'm getting calls and people telling me sensitive information and they need to act on it. Get a response back with, "Nope." I then ask them if they think the local newspaper journalists would be interested in what's going on, and perhaps I should contact them. After 2 to 3 days, I get back a reply from someone else, not telephony department, saying they'll look into it. Call rate slowly starts to die down, and I had that number for 5 years, and I think in the last 3 years I only received 1 to 2 calls total. It's amazing that it takes threats to get people to actually do the right thing. I feel like what OP was describing here was a little harder to just actively deal with. It sounds like in a lot of situations it was a number either written down somewhere or maybe saved in some patient's phone. Just places that like, you can put out a bulletin all you want, but it probably won't just effectively cause everybody to stop having this number or trying that number. Honestly, if I found myself in an OP situation, I might try and just get my number changed rather than deal with it like that. Our next story is by Purple Blossom. "No ma'am, checking my phone doesn't mean I work here. In these trying times, many people got into ordering their groceries online and having them delivered, which is great if you can afford that. Some grocery stores allow for people to do this through a third-party company, and some offer the service themselves. So I'm shopping in one of those that allows for both, and have been using my phone to keep looking at a list my partner sent me of things she wants plus my own list of things we needed, as well as chatting with friends because why not? I don't remember the aisle, but I'm looking around at shelves for a specific thing, and a woman walks right up to me, too close and with her mask not covering her nose, and demands I tell her where something is. I'm not paying attention to her, so I don't remember what she asked for, and even if I did know, her tone and demeanor would have put me off helping anyway. But I tell her I don't work for the store. She gets huffy and says something about how just because I'm employed to shop for other people doesn't mean I cannot help her. So I repeat, I don't work for the store, I'm just shopping for myself. And she counters that me checking my phone all the time is how she knows I work for the store. I triple down, repeat myself a final time, and add that checking my phone is not enough to assume someone works for the store and to leave me alone before walking away. Later, when I was in checkout, I heard her talking loudly to a store employee who said something about how all store workers who do shopping for online orders wear their store uniform and name badge when working, which means if I was shopping for someone, it was for a third-party company, and thus I wasn't required to help her. Sure, I didn't get fired or yelled at, nor had the manager involved or anything, but it was just a bit surreal to have my first "I don't work here lady" moment to be over my phone use while shopping. It kinda just blows my mind that in 2021, when like 5-year-olds have smartphones nowadays, somebody's going to claim that looking at your phone a lot while shopping means you work there? That makes no logical sense to me for sure. And our final story of the day is by Garis, Sexist A-hole at Tech Store. I have seen many posts from this Reddit, never thought I'd be part of one. I recently had to buy a new computer chair, so I went to a store a little ways away to purchase one. I'm browsing the selections when a female employee approaches and offers me help. I had already decided on the chair and told her as much when the D-bag appears. To give you the full scope of this situation, I'm in silk-looking long pants and a Pennywise t-shirt. The employee is in uniform, t-shirt bright red with company logo on it and khaki pants. D-bag asks, "You there, I need help picking up a gaming computer for my son." The employee kindly responds, "Of course, sir. Let me get this chair rang out and I'll help you pick one." At this point, he gave us a weird look. "I wasn't talking to you, I was speaking to him." I was a little confused by this and simply said, "I don't work here." Him, apparently only just noticing my outfit, looked at me and said, "Yes, but you probably know more about tech than this little girl does." After I managed to pay an expedition to recover my jaw from the center of the earth, I simply said, "Look, I don't know a bit about tech, but it's extremely sexist to assume she doesn't because she's a woman, and I would suggest you apologize." At this point, he went beet red and began yelling at me, calling me every name under the sun. Some of the gems I caught in the middle of the incoherent gibberish were freaking witch and "I'll freak you up if you talk to me like that again, so just do what I ask." Now, I'm still very calm because I've worked in retail for 15 years, so not the first rant I've heard at work. Work at a gas station, you'll hear some gems. As I'm about to respond, I get a gentle tap on my shoulder. It's the employee and she tells me, "He's not worth it, let's get you rang out." I agree and we finish our transaction. As I'm being rang out, I hear some commotion behind me and turn to see the D-bag being escorted out by the police. Apparently, while he was losing it on me, the employee was not idle and she had radioed her manager, let him know what was happening, and the reason she got me to walk away to the counter with her was so the manager could talk to this guy and eject him from the store for harassment and threats, to which he refused to leave. So the police were called and he was took out and banned. It's just so stupid that this entire thing happened because he had to be a sexist D-bag and couldn't just show a little respect to others. I don't know how anybody being anything would just automatically mean they know more or less about equipment or electronics. It definitely blows my mind and this guy deserved everything he got. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.